Imagine this. You're alone in the middle of the ocean. Your body is shutting down. All around you, nothing but endless deep blue water. And beneath the surface, hungry sharks circling. In your hand is a small camera, one that may end up recording the final moments of your life. This is the story of a terrifying disaster, where one small mistake wove a deadly trap. The screen opens on Lindsay. There's pure fear in her eyes, her lips tremble, her face is pale from exhaustion and shock. Somehow, she's staying afloat while recording what sounds like her final message on a waterproof camera. Through sobs, she whispers, we just came here for adventure, but now no one's left. She tries to scream for help, but the ocean swallows her voice. And just as she's about to say something more, the camera battery dies. The screen goes black. Silence. The story shifts into a flashback. Lindsay's sister Paige, the bold leader of the group, had planned an exclusive adventure with her friends Sam, Seb, and Kaya. They loved going places most people wouldn't dare to step foot in. This time, their target was a mysterious island, one the government had strictly forbidden anyone from visiting. Chasing thrills and social media fame, they rented a private plane. That's where the real mistake happened. To avoid getting caught, they pressured the pilot to turn off the plane's transponder, the device that sends their location to air traffic control. They thought they were being clever. In reality, they were erasing themselves from the world. At first, everything felt like a dream. Laughing, cameras rolling, adrenaline high. Then suddenly, the engine jerks, a strange rattling noise. A violent explosion. One of the wings snaps off. Screams fill the cabin. Chaos erupts. The door flies open, and one of their friends is sucked straight out of the sky into the ocean below. Seconds later, the entire aircraft slams into the sea. When Lindsay regains consciousness, she's surrounded by wreckage and saltwater. Gradually, Kaya and her boyfriend Sam surface nearby. A short distance away, the injured pilot clings to a broken piece of the plane. With his dying breath, he reveals the truth. The transponder's off. No one knows where we are. No one's coming. The words hit like a death sentence. Their only chance now is to retrieve an emergency device from the submerged plane and reactivate it. Kaya gathers her courage and dives into the dark water. Every second carries the threat of death. Somehow, she manages to find an emergency safety raft. By the time she resurfaces, the pilot is dead. Now only 3 remain on the raft: Lindsay, Kaya, and Sam. In the distance through the fog, they can see the island, the same island that once felt like a dream. Sam decides waiting isn't an option. He believes swimming to shore is their best chance. Lindsay tries to stop him. "This is insane, Sam. We need to stay with the raft." He jumps into the water. Love proves stronger than logic. Lindsay follows him. But the ocean was never silent. Blood had already spread through the water, an open invitation to predators. Lindsay looks down. 3 massive shadows moving fast. Sharks. Panic explodes. They both race back toward the raft. Lindsay barely makes it up and pulls herself aboard. Sam is just a few feet away. Then, the water erupts. In a single flash, a massive shark clamps its jaws around him. His scream barely escapes before he's dragged into the dark blue abyss. Right before her eyes, he's gone. Now only one question remains. Can Lindsay and Kaya escape the blood-soaked ocean alive, or will the sea write the final page of their story? Now only 2 lives remain on that tiny raft. Lindsay and Kaya. Night fell. Darkness swallowed the sea, and every wave that slapped against the raft sounded like something unseen. Circling below, every ripple made their hearts jump into their throats. To keep the fear from consuming them, Kaya started talking. She told stories from her days in the army, how she'd been trapped behind enemy lines and still completed her mission, how she'd stood her ground under heavy gunfire without breaking. "Fear never goes away," Kaya said quietly, "but as long as you're breathing, the fight isn't over." There was conviction in her voice. And for the first time since the crash, Lindsay felt a flicker of strength return. They made a decision. They had to reach the island. But Kaya knew drifting blindly wouldn't save them. Their real hope was the transponder still inside the sunken plane. If they could turn it back on, maybe, just maybe, someone would find them. They were preparing to move when, boom, a violent impact. The raft launched into the air, and the next second, both of them were thrown into the water. The sharks had returned. This time Kaya was the target. She unleashed everything. Her training, her strength. She kicked, she fought, she tried to use her knife. But how long can a human stand against apex predators in their own territory? Lindsay watched in horror. Kaya's screams dissolved into bubbles. And then, silence. Now Lindsay was truly alone. By afternoon, the sun burned mercilessly overhead. Her eyes were dry. Her body felt hollow. Then, far in the distance, she saw a boat passing. Her heart leapt. She screamed with everything she had left, waved her arms, begged for help. But the roar of the ocean and the distance swallowed her voice. The boat kept moving. Hope shattered again. That's when she remembered the pilot's final words. The transponder, turn it back on. She took a long breath, buried her fear, and dove into the depths. Below the surface, it looked like a nightmare. A broken wing, twisted wreckage, darkness pressing in from every side. Somehow, she found the transponder. With shaking hands, she flipped the switch. At that exact moment, 3 shadows rushed toward her. The sharks. Death was only feet away. In panic, she spotted a survival kit wedged in the wreckage. She grabbed the flare gun, aimed blindly, and pulled the trigger. A deafening blast. Blinding fire tore through the water. The sharks recoiled. That was her only chance. Lindsay swam upward with everything she had left. She collapsed back onto the raft, exhausted, but alive. She grabbed the oars and began rowing toward the island. On the way, she saw a body floating in the water. "Seb, you're alive." She reached out, grabbed his hand. Then, the water exploded. A shark lunged like lightning. In a single violent motion, Seb was ripped from her grasp. All that remained in her hand was the camera, the same one she'd used to record her final message. Despair consumed her. She pulled out her knife. Her hands trembled. Better to end it herself than become another feeding frenzy. But then, she saw her mother's face in her mind, heard her sister Paige's laughter. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I'm not giving up that easily." She put the knife away. The sharks kept circling, biting at the rubber raft. Air hissed out. Every second it grew weaker, gasping, alive. Nearby, she found an old wooden boat and an emergency supply box. A few drops of water felt like life returning to her veins. She tried the walkie-talkie, no signal. As a last resort, she fired a flare into the sky. Red light streaked upward. A final cry for rescue. Then, she saw movement in the waves. Someone was swimming. It was Paige. Paige was alive. The water darkened. Those same deadly shadows began circling again. The sharks had surrounded Paige. Now only one question remains. Can Lindsay pull her sister from the jaws of those predators? Or will the ocean claim its final victory? Now it was a direct collision between time and death. Losing meant only one thing: the end. As the vicious jaws began closing in around Paige, Lindsay didn't hesitate. She dragged Paige out of the water as if she had ripped her straight from death's mouth. They collapsed onto the sand. Clinging to each other, they sobbed uncontrollably. This mead? Paige's leg was shattered. The bone had shifted backly. With trembling hands, Lindsay found pieces of wood, tore strips of fabric, and fashioned a splint. Paige screamed through the pain, but hope was still alive. Then suddenly, a crackling voice cut through the silence on the walkie-talkie. "Hello? Is anyone there?" They looked at each other. Rescue. 2 fishermen had seen the flare and steered their boat toward the island. Lindsay shouted a warning. There are sharks in the water, but they trusted their rifles and their experience. They leaned over the edge of the boat to look down. Then, bam! A violent impact rocked the vessel. Screams. Within seconds, the water turned red again. Lindsay and Paige could only watch. The sharks dragged both fishermen under. Their empty boat drifted a short distance away. That was their last hope. Something changed in Lindsay at that moment. She was no longer prey trying to escape. She became a fighter. She grabbed a can of kerosene lying near the shore. A dangerous plan formed in her mind. "We won't survive unless we finish them," she told Paige. She stepped toward the water, deliberately drawing the sharks closer, using herself as bait. As they lunged toward the shallows, Paige used every ounce of strength she had to shove a heavy rock down onto one of them. The remaining 2 immediately turned on their own wounded companion. That was the opening. Lindsay spotted one of the fishermen's rifles floating nearby. She took a deep breath and dove in. A shark shot toward her like lightning. The rifle nearly slipped from her grip. Despite her broken leg, Paige forced herself into the water to help. It became a violent, desperate struggle. For one horrifying second, the shark clamped onto Lindsay, its teeth grazing her shoulder. Then, bang, she pulled the trigger. The bullet tore into the shark's head. The ocean turned red again. When Lindsay dragged Paige back to shore, her sister was barely breathing. Tears filled Paige's eyes. "There's something I need to tell you." In a broken voice, she confessed the truth. She had always been jealous of Lindsay, of her success, even of her relationship with Sam. She had tried to create misunderstandings between them. For Lindsay, it was another wound, deep and unexpected. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she took her sister's hand. "I forgive you." Paige smiled, just slightly, and with that smile, her breathing stopped. Now only one thing remained inside Lindsay: revenge. She tied a rope around her waist and secured herself to the boat so she wouldn't be dragged under. When a shark lunged, she fired directly into its open mouth. Then she poured kerosene into the water and ignited it. Flames spread across the surface, dancing over the burning sea. Only one remained. The largest, it was dragging Paige's body away. Lindsay climbed aboard the fisherman's boat. There she found an oxygen tank. She fastened her knife to its end and loosened the valve. As the monstrous predator opened its jaws and charged, Lindsay shoved the tank straight into its mouth. The next second, a massive explosion. Water, fire, and flesh burst into the air. Then, silence. Standing in the smoke, Lindsay looked up at the sky. Tears streamed down her face. But there was the faintest hint of a smile. She had taken her revenge. In the distance, she heard it. The sound of helicopters. Coast Guard boats approaching. Rescue had finally arrived. 6 months later, Lindsay sits in front of a camera again. But this time, there is no fear in her eyes. There is something else. The quiet intensity of a survivor. My team is gone, she says softly. But their passion, their dreams, live on through me. She is a warrior, a survivor. So now the question is yours. Is chasing viral fame worth risking your life? Let me know what you think. If this survival story moved you, hit like and subscribe for more intense edge of your seat stories. See you on the next terrifying journey.